Hi, friends. We've been learning about plants, and I have a story about my friend Curious George. And he's starting to learn all about plants and how many different kinds of plants there are. So let's read about Curious George discovers plants. Have you ever wondered where the fruits and vegetables in your grocery store come from? Most of them are grown on farms far away and come by truck, train, boat, or plane. Are you curious about how vegetables and other plants grow? George is curious too. George was enjoying market day. He liked the fresh vegetable section with its cucumbers, artichokes, beets, spinach, carrots, and onions, to name just a few. George wasn't sure where the vegetables came from, but he sure loved to eat them. They had as many different tastes as shapes and colors. I was thinking about cooking vegetable soup tonight, George, said his friend, the man with the yellow hat. But then I started to think of Chef Pischetti's famous fresh vegetable soup and his spinach ravioli. Maybe we should go to his restaurant, the man asked. What do you think? Yum, thought George. At Chef Pischetti's restaurant, they sat at their favorite table and placed their order with Netta, the chef's wife. We'd both like fresh vegetable soup with extra carrots and spinach ravioli, the man ordered. Wait, Chef Pischetti cried as he emerged from the kitchen. I am out of fresh veggies. We have finished the carrots and spinach. George was worried. What would they have for dinner? Why don't you pick some more vegetables? Nettie asked. Would you like to come with me to pick the vegetables, Giorgio? The chef asked. George nodded and followed him eagerly. We're going up to the roof, the chef announced. George was confused. Didn't vegetables come from the supermarket? Some veggies grow on farms far away, then travel to a store, where they sit around until you buy them, chef explained. But my veggies grow here. The chef proudly waved his arm at all the boxes filled with dirt. I pick them, I take them down to my kitchen, and they go into your belly all on the same day. That's Pischetti's fresh. George was still confused. Where were the fresh vegetables? George watched in amazement as Chef Pischetti grabbed a sprig of green and pulled a carrot out of the dirt. What's this? Chef Pischetti pulled another green sprig out of the dirt. A weed? Weeds are bad. They soak up the water and nutrients from the soil that my veggies need to grow, the chef explained. If I don't have fresh veggies to cook, I may have to close down. George wouldn't want that to happen. But I don't have time to pull weeds out after working all day, the chef added. That night, George worried about Chef Pischetti's weed problem. He lay in bed while the man read him a bedtime story, but he didn't pay much attention. Before he knew it, George had an idea. He knew how he could help Chef Pischetti. The next morning, George secretly took some gardening tools from the chef's roof and began to dig up the weeds. He dug up every green thing he saw. He packed all those leafy greens into 3 trash bags and threw the bags away. George was excited to see the chef's reaction in the garden later that day. But the chef was not happy. Oh no, Chef Pischetti exclaimed. The weeds are gone, but all of my veggies are gone too. Who could have done this? George felt bad. He realized that he didn't know how to tell the difference between a weed and a vegetable. Do you think you could? I will have to plant all new vegetables, the chef announced. He took out some seeds to show George. Can you believe this little seed will grow into a carrot? George shook his head. It was amazing. The chef dug out a small hole in the ground with his trowel, scooping the dirt out. He placed the seed into a hole and replaced the dirt. I'll water and fertilize the seeds regularly. The chef saw George's puzzled look. Fertilize means to feed. We will have new vegetables in 3 to 4 months, chef said. I won't have fresh veggies to use for cooking until then. George was curious. Why did it take so long? Maybe it didn't have to. Maybe a little monkey could come to the rescue. George ran home and took all the carrots he could find from the refrigerator. He ran back to the roof garden and began to dig a hole where the carrot seeds had been planted. George carefully placed one fully grown carrot in each hole that he dug. It took a long time, but finally George finished putting all the carrots he had brought from home in the ground. He put the tools back where he found them. The next morning, Chef Peschetti found a big surprise. My carrots grew this big overnight. It's a miracle, the chef called out. When George arrived later in the day, Chef Peschetti was still talking about the carrots. Now I won't have to close the restaurant, Giorgio, because I have fresh veggies. The chef scratched his head. I wonder why the eggplants and squash didn't grow. Oops! George had forgotten all about them. Tonight I will plant peas, Chef Peschetti said. I hope it works again. George left as soon as he could to get more vegetables from his refrigerator. He found fresh eggplants and squash, but no peas. He looked in the cupboards. There were plenty of canned peas. Can you guess what George is going to do? What do you guys think? What's George going to do with the peas? Let's see. The next morning, the chef found fresh eggplants and squash in his garden, along with canned peas. He called to his wife. It happened again, Netta, and the peas are in cans. It's magic. Call the TV news. The chef was so excited, he asked his scientist friend to come and study the special dirt in his garden. At home, the man with the yellow hat discovered that all the vegetables in the kitchen were missing. George, he called, do you know what happened to all of our veggies? George nodded. He led his friend out of the house and over to Chef Peschetti's. When the man arrived at the rooftop garden, he finally understood what George had done. Well, it looks like George has been your magic gardener, the man explained. All our vegetables have been going into your dirt. Ah, Nettie, our garden isn't magic after all, the chef said sadly. But your cooking still is, Nettie replied. Absolutely, everyone agreed. That's right, said the man. You can cook up our vegetables any day. Everyone helped pick the vegetables, and Chef Peschetti invited all his friends to stay for a delicious lunch of vegetable soup. George's plan was a success after all. Wow, that was a lot of fun. I can't believe that Curious George planted already fully grown vegetables into the garden. I think that was very funny. But it does take a long time for vegetables to grow. But it's well worth it. Yummy.